when CM Punk was under contract, and what would ever have happened if the NXT champion at the time, Seth Rollins, were to have faced the WWE champion, CM Punk, kind of the way that Kevin Owens, the current NXT champion, will be facing John Cena at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view for Cena's U.S. title, in a scenario where U.S. champion is facing NXT champion. What would have ever happened if NXT champion would have faced WWE champion at the time were to have happened, and CM Punk would have faced Seth Rollins? I think that would have been a great match because they are mirror images of each other's career. Now, how long will Seth Rollins be champion for? It all depends on how many wrestling fans buy into the idea of being annoyed that Seth Rollins is the future of the company, because that's why Triple H and Stephanie are always shoving it in their faces, always throwing it in their faces and finding new and innovative ways to do it, because Seth Rollins is getting paid to piss us all off. And obviously, I'm not the only one who's pissed off over the conclusion of WrestleMania 31 and the fact that Seth Rollins is champion, because millions of other wrestling fans out there are just as pissed off, if not more pissed off, over the fact that Seth Rollins is champion, just as I am. Seth Rollins is not my favorite representative of the new talent initiative. He's not my favorite wrestler. When you compare Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan in terms of performance level and just captivation, Daniel Bryan to me was a far more entertaining wrestler, which was why I was a fan of Daniel Bryan and the whole Yes Movement idea. I think that was really, it might have been overpromoted, but it was an ingenious gimmick that Vince McMahon and Triple H came up with for Daniel Bryan to have, which is why I'm a huge fan of Daniel Bryan, more so than I am and have been of Seth Rollins. When he was the leader and the driving force behind the Shield, was more so of a fan of Seth Rollins back then. Now going solo from a singles perspective after being a former tag team champion, which was his only accolade apart from being NXT champion after coming over from NXT to WWE, not so much, because Seth Rollins has been convinced, and he really believes in his own mind, that he is the future. If you go back, throw yourself back to a couple of video blogs that I threw up on my YouTube channel a while ago at Jonathan Clarke 22, I said that Seth Rollins was the future in his own mind. This is a follow-up to how I believe Seth Rollins was the future in his own mind, because I really believe, I still stand to the fact that Seth Rollins believes he is the future in his own mind. I'm going to continue to blog about that from my written column in this corner with Jonathan Clarke. I'm going to continue to throw cheap shots your way from my Google video blog. I'm going to continue to throw video blogs your way on my YouTube channel at Jonathan Clarke 22, because I want to drive home the fact, drive the proverbial nail into the coffin, that I don't believe Seth Rollins is what he claims to be, and I really detest that. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to covering professional wrestling and the UFC. I hate how people believe, either professionally or on the indie circuit or when it comes to UFC or MMA, from that perspective, I hate how people convince themselves that they are something that they aren't legitimately are. And Seth Rollins is one of the latest individuals to have fucking done that. The only thing he has achieved in doing is what he's getting paid to do, and that is piss you off. He's definitely pissed me off. I don't have to determine whether or not I have been pissed off over what Seth Rollins has done. From his antics, his promos, the presentation of his character, how he goes about doing things, how he's the latest annoying champion, the most annoying champion since Mike Mizanin was champion back in 09, 2010. I mean, that says a lot. You know, when he's the first annoying champion since Mike Mizanin in 09, 2010, that says a lot. And that should really put into perspective for you how I feel about Seth Rollins. Less than 55 individuals have held the WWE Championship since its inception back in 1963, with the inaugural champion being Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. Since then, everybody from Triple H to Stone Cold Steve Austin to Shawn Michaels has had the privilege of holding the championships, and there were times when they were the most arrogant individuals to ever have the privilege of covering in professional wrestling, but they by far were not as annoying or as pathetic as what Seth Rollins is. He just is a champion because WWE can get away with putting the strap on him when you have a far more diverse group of talent in WWE who could be far better champions than what Seth Rollins ever was. WWE.com, here's the interesting thing, threw up a poll where they determined whether or not who was the most entertaining and most talented individual out of the three-man group known as the Shield. You know, Seth Rollins was one of the choices, and it was funny because the WWE fans chose Seth Rollins to be the most talented one of the Shield when you had Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose to choose from. There is a reason why Dean Ambrose is the number one contender for the championship now. It's because people are finally starting to recognize the potential that goes with Dean Ambrose's character. And I will state this, over this microphone, more of a fan of Dean Ambrose than I am of Roman Reigns, and for sure as hell am more of a fan of Dean Ambrose than I am of Seth Rollins. He is the obvious choice to be the most talented individual to come out of the Shield. I don't know why many of you chose Seth Rollins. Maybe because he's champion and you want to favor the Authority, because we have a very diverse group of WWE fans of the millions we have out there. There are so many fans out there of the Authority and its representatives, from Kane to Seth Rollins to J&J Security to Triple H, even more so because Triple H won on the behalf of WWE in his rivalry with Sting from WrestleMania 31. Don't know why so many of you out there are fans of the Authority, because I can tell you that I don't support the Authority. I don't support how they go about the way they go about things and how they make decisions to only benefit themselves. I mean, let's face the fact. The only reason why Seth Rollins is champion is because Triple H has just found a new way to benefit himself and do what's best for business. And I question Triple H from a political point of view if Seth Rollins is really what is best for business, when you have people like Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker, who have always been under contract with WWE, Legends deals being handed out left and right. And I question whether or not Seth Rollins is what's best for business when you have a phenomenal group of new talented wrestlers like Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns, who have never been given the benefit of the doubt. If you were going to put Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania 31, you should have made the best of it and at least had Roman Reigns come closer than what he did to winning the championship. One Superman punch in the spirit of Brock Lesnar was not good enough. Not giving Roman Reigns a one-on-one opportunity after WrestleMania and its fallout, putting him in a match with the Big Show, was not good enough. Whatever happened to Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins one-on-one for the championship? Reigns has been teasing he's going to be champion at some point in the fall of WrestleMania 31. But I wonder, when and how is this going to happen? And if you remember back to my WrestleMania 31 Fallout shoot, one of the biggest things I was pissed off over was the fact that Seth Rollins escaped WrestleMania the way he did, went about things, and won the WWE Championship. If they would have changed the match a couple of weeks prior to WrestleMania from a one-on-one match with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns to a triple threat match, I would have accepted Seth Rollins being champion, because we would have known going into the match that Rollins was going to be in the match. How they went about it is what I'm pissed off about. It's not so much the fact that Rollins is champion, it's just how they went about Seth Rollins being champion. I think he would have been a far more talented individual, like he was at the Royal Rumble, if he would have been in the triple threat match, and it would have been advertised 1 to 2 weeks prior to WrestleMania for being a triple threat match like it was at the Royal Rumble. Because in the Royal Rumble triple threat match with Brock Lesnar and John Cena, Seth Rollins was one of the more entertaining individuals in the match. What made Brock Lesnar stand out? He won the match with a broken rib. What made Seth Rollins stand out was that unbelievable leap he made on Brock Lesnar and John Cena from the ring through the announcer table. That was an amazing spot Seth Rollins did, and that really put into perspective for me how talented Seth Rollins was. Now, apart from that spot he took in the triple threat match, that spot he took at the Royal Rumble, and a couple of 5-star matches he had with John Cena inside the steel cage near the end of 2014, which could have easily been match of the year, even though it wasn't on pay-per-view, and it was done for a main event of Monday Night Raw. And a couple of matches he had with Randy Orton in that feud, where Randy Orton and Seth Rollins really went into overdrive with their rivalry. I think Seth Rollins is an extremely talented individual. I just wish he handled things more professionally than what he has over the last number of months. And I wish wrestling fans would realize that Seth Rollins, even with the results of the WWE.com poll being in favor of Seth Rollins, maybe Seth Rollins isn't as entertaining or isn't as talented as what so many wrestling fans have been giving him credit for, because he's a knockoff of a Daniel Bryan, and I'm for sure as hell certain that he's a knockoff of CM Punk. And I think I can get away with putting over Seth Rollins as a wannabe CM Punk / CM Punk replacement. Was I always a fan of CM Punk? Yes, I was a fan of CM Punk. I was even more so a fan of CM Punk because they didn't know what to do with CM Punk's character. Seth Rollins' character, they knew what they were going to do with Rollins' character from the minute they brought him in. They were going to introduce him on NXT as the leader of the Shield. They were going to do the same thing when he crossed over to WWE, introduce him as the leader of the Shield. Then they were going to break up the Shield. They were going to have 3 of them go in singles careers. Seth Rollins was going to be the one to benefit. They were going to try to convince wrestling fans he was the future. They were going to shove it in our faces enough they pissed us off. They accomplished their goal, and now we're a Seth Rollins. He's sitting comfortably on the top of the WWE as its champion. For how long? We're stuck with him as champion until at least Night of Champions. That will bring us up to September of this calendar year. That's when I see Seth Rollins potentially starting to go to the point where he's going to lose the championship. That's when he's going to get to the point where he's defended it successfully enough, and people like Brock Lesnar and Sting are going to pose threats to Rollins' reign as champion, although he allows that he's going to be champion for a very long time. You can highlight being champion for a very long time, and one of the first promos he gave us as champion, because CM Punk said the same thing back in 2010, 2011. He said interim Raw General Manager John Laurinaitis had better get used to the fact he was champion, because he was going to be champion for a very long time. Seth Rollins told WWE fans after winning it a couple of days after WrestleMania 31, they had better get used to it because he was going to be champion for a very long time. 434 days to a couple of months, it's a far cry. Rollins still has a long way to go. I'm giving him till at least Night of Champions, which will bring us up to September of the 2015 calendar year. That's how long I see Rollins having a few successful title defenses before Brock Lesnar and Sting pose threats to his title. Which brings me to another scenario people are talking about, because Sting lost at WrestleMania 31 to Triple H in a match everybody was hoping he was going to win, myself included, was really let down over that. Seth Rollins versus Sting, with how he's been taking shots at Sting and Triple H more so Sting, is a pretty good scenario as to how Seth Rollins could go about losing the title. How about the Scorpion Death Drop to Seth Rollins, leading Sting to his very first ever WWE Championship? For diehard wrestling fans, you may have wanted to see Sting win the title from Triple H or The Undertaker, because that was a dream match that was talked about ever since the 90s, especially when you talk about Sting versus The Undertaker. How about something like Sting making Seth Rollins to tap out to the Scorpion Death Lock? Again, another scenario you would like to have seen before The Undertaker or Triple H ever since the 90s. But I think it would be a good way to go about giving Sting his first championship. If it's not Sting, it's obviously going to be Brock Lesnar, because Stephanie allows Lesnar's going to get his rematch. The only reason Lesnar